What's up, comic and pop culture fans? This is James with Minhunter Comics, and I thought I'd give you a pretty fun video where I tell you, from an actual dealer perspective, what books are moving and what books aren't. My two best friends from high school opened an antique shop about a year ago, and I've had the pleasure of having my own booth there for the same amount of time. Sometimes we get people in that know the YouTube channel that just want to come in and chat comics. We also get a bunch of foot traffic as well. And there are very obvious trends that I'd like to share with you for the purpose of some fun. If you can, consider liking the video, subscribe, or join. It helps me do videos like this on a full-time basis. So I'm going to start you off with the obvious. I don't think it's new information to tell you that Amazing Spider-Man and Batman are going to be your best sellers. It's kind of obvious. If you don't know, now you know. Those always will sell. I always have to keep my eye on those bins and make sure I'm restocking because those are the ones that tend to deplete the fastest. But there's definitely ones that you would think would do better that don't, like Fantastic Four, which does particularly poorly. In fact, why don't we do, for the entire month of February, I'm going to do all F categories, Fantastic Four and Flash, 30% off. Other than keys, people tend to not like picking up the filler. So much so that I'm thinking about removing the filler and maybe just keeping it to keys. Now, interestingly, the other one with Flash, people like to pick up often for really good covers, and I see a lot of the keys actually still in the bins. Still, those are some of the lower seller ones that you might not have expected. There are, of course, worse sellers than Fantastic Four and Flash, like West Coast Avengers. I am thinking about maybe even getting rid of my West Coast Avengers. Pretty much at this point have only the keys, and they're priced pretty low, and even they aren't really moving too much, so they might have to go. Also, anything Archie. Another ones that maybe aren't so surprising is I don't think I've moved a single Eternals book. I have the full run at the shop, and I don't think a single book has moved from there. Also, Shang-Chi doesn't move. I have every book there for $1, so that's a little surprising, but okay. Spectacular Spider and Web of Spider-Man both do really well. People always want to pick up those particular runs, so I'm glad I still have those bins there. In fact, actually, they do quite well. Now, remember how I said that Batman is a really good seller? It doesn't translate to Detective Comics, which is really interesting. I also have a Batman miscellaneous, so like one-shots, the animated series adaptation, stuff like that, little oddball stuff. Those actually will sell faster than Detective Comics, so it's really interesting. Basically, when it comes to Detective Comics, people want to pick it for the keys. Maybe we got a couple people that want to grab the entire Nightfall arc. Otherwise, most Detective Comics gets completely ignored. Now, I want to talk about some of them that are right in the middle of the road. Like, they sell about as good as you'd expect. Pretty good, could be better, could be worse. That's going to go to Green Lantern, Avengers, and Daredevil. Avengers is a little surprising. I thought that would be one of the best sellers for sure, especially since there's a lot of Bronze Age back there. But it just doesn't, it doesn't move like you'd think it would move, that's for sure. Daredevil's another one of the ones where it can sit for a while and then like bam, like someone comes and grabs it all. So that one's actually like pretty good, actually. Captain America does very poorly. People in my antique shop rarely pick up keys, even slashed prices down pretty ridiculously. I think the movie Cap is more popular than the comic book counterpart for sure. So already I've mentioned some that don't move too much. I've talked about a couple right in the middle, what you'd expect. Now, you didn't hear me say X-Force or X-Factor. Why is that? That's because, believe it or not, I guess it's because of the power of the X. X-Factor and X-Force move pretty fast in my shop. Granted, in my bins, I only at this point have the keys. I've ripped out all the filler because the filler stuff wasn't moving at all. I think I had $1 or 50 cents on it and it wasn't moving. So that's all gone, and it is the keys in there now, and they move pretty darn well, I gotta say. X-Factor is a lot better than X-Force, I will say. Also, kind of in the same vein, New Mutants is another one that does pretty well. Even the filler. So a lot of the filler I had just marked at $1, and people were grabbing it. So New Mutants is actually a decent bet. Now, I do want to get into some of the things that I thought were like pretty good. So that's going to go to New Teen Titans, specifically the George Perez run that gets depleted fast. I also know that Superman, Action Comics, and Superboy, as long as you have like Silver Age and Bronze Age, that stuff actually moves pretty well. I will say when it comes to the 90s stuff, that stuff was so overprinted, so a lot of that just kind of tends to sit in the shop. But it is contradictory to the video I made like a year ago today, which I kind of said, hey, why does it seem like no one's collecting Superman? I don't really know if that's applicable anymore. I think as long as it's the Silver and Bronze Age, people are definitely still wanting that stuff. From the same vein, Justice League does pretty well, but I wanted to get into the best sellers, the hands down ones that are always gonna fly off the frickin' shelf. And that is Uncanny X-Men. I actually think the Uncanny X-Men sells faster than Amazing Spider-Man, at least at my antique shop. I don't know why. I've never fully understood it, but man, I can't keep up with the demand for Uncanny X-Men. That is easily the fastest mover at the shop. My top 3 sellers, which I think is extremely surprising to me, Doctor Strange, and I'm not just talking limited to the main Doctor Strange run, even that 90s run at my shop tends to do pretty well. Ghost Rider. Oh my God, people love Ghost Rider way more than I thought. Now, I do know that the 90s run definitely petered out, so you can find those first like 40 issues pretty easily. The second half of that run is always much harder to find. The main like 70s Ghost Rider run goes really fast. I think it's the power of a good cover. I think the foot traffic likes the look of a lot of the Ghost Rider covers a lot. They like that particular 70s bronze Marvel look. Like I said, Doctor Strange, Ghost Rider, kind of similar art styles on a lot of that 70s stuff, but nothing compares to the juggernaut that is fricking Howard the Duck. Within the last year, I've probably gotten in 4 complete full runs of Howard the Duck, the main run we're talking about here. And I've gotten other collections in that have had little Howard books in between. Not a full run, but I certainly add them to the bins. Each time it has been fully depleted. That is also another one of the runs that I am completely out of right now. Did I miss something? Why is Howard the Duck easily my best seller? If you guys know why Howard the Duck is the best seller at the antique shop, can you drop it down below? I'm definitely starting to look for it more seriously because I know that people want it. And I keep thinking once I add it in, like, oh, that was just one guy who wanted his Howard the Duck books. There's not gonna be another guy that wants a full run of that. Nope, every time. So, man, Howard the Duck, Uncanny X-Men, Ghost Rider, Batman, surprisingly, Superman. In fact, let's recap. In the F, we got West Coast, Archie, Eternals, Alpha, Cap, Legion, Power Pack, Excalibur, Thing, some of those you'd expect. D tier is going to be, unfortunately, Shang-Chi, Marvel Team-Up, I can't move Punisher at all, Simpsons comics. Thor was surprising, though, I have to say. Superboy, you gotta find the right guy, same with Iron Man and Submariner, and certainly Animal Man. But some of the slower movers like Fantastic Four, Flash are surprising, most surprising detectives. New Mutants does better than I thought. Moon Knight does worse than you'd think. Turtles, Transformers, X-Force. Then we have stuff that's probably going to move a little slow. Hulk Spectacular, Web, Daredevil, Wolverine, Action, World's Finest, Justice League, and X-Factor, believe it or not. And then the stuff that's guaranteed to sell is, of course, Batman, Amazing Spider-Man, surprisingly Green Lantern, Wonder Woman, of course, G.I. Joe, Superman, Silver and Bronze, and Doctor Strange. The stuff I might as well keep at the register because it sells so fast is Star Wars, New Teen Titans, I'm talking about the George Perez run here, obviously. And my God, do people rip through Uncanny X-Men super fast. Ghost Rider is probably one of the biggest surprises here if it weren't for our God tier, Howard the Duck, which is pretty much guaranteed sold within a week of putting it in. I can't explain it, it defies logic, but there it is. Anyway, thought I'd just share. Don't forget, we're doing 30% off on all the Fs, so Flash and Fantastic Four. Come on down to the antique shop. I'll be there working every Wednesday, and I hope this video was a little bit of fun. I will see you at the next video.